first time we had a meeting for it was like as soon as we were able to have a meeting for something like this. So I think it was when we were filming Pineapple Express. So it was before any movie we had made had come out, really.
Which gave people little reason.
Exactly, but we were like just like kind of picking up some momentum as writers, and so we were like, we're writers now, we're making an action comedy, maybe they'll let us make Preacher. And I remember we had a meeting with, I can't remember the dude's name, but he who was ever at the time was the guy who controlled the property. I remember we actually showed them the fight from Pineapple Express in Danny McBride's house. Like, to show them that we could, like, execute action and comedy in some capacity. And I think they were like, oh, okay. And then they gave it to, I think, Mark Steven Johnson or something like that around that time. And then it passed through a lot of hands. I think Sam Mendes was, I know Sam Mendes was involved with it at some point. I think David Fincher was circling it at one point or another. I think, yeah, there was just a lot of iterations of it. And we just always... we're just very vocal to our agent or to whoever was around who would listen to us that it was something we were big fans of and that we thought we could do a good job of adapting in some way. And then we met Neil Moritz on the Green Hornet, and then we actually developed like a very good relationship with him, and he started controlling the property eventually, and he had heard us talk about it like nonstop. And so
he still tried to make it with like two others.
Yes, exactly. Part of me thinks he only ever got the property in the first place because he heard us talk about it a lot. Then still tried to make it with two other people who then did not do it. And then eventually it still found its way back to us, which I've not called him on. But yeah, and so then eventually it fell in our laps. And by that time, there's a thing called cable television that was very popular, and it allowed us to do that.
Yeah, we initially thought that it would be like a Band of Brothers kind of 10-part miniseries, because that just seemed logical, because shows like this didn't exist then.
Yeah, there was just no giant, but you know, like huge scale.
And then when it was in movie format, it was just too brief. It didn't make sense as a movie, and there was no time to jam it all in.
Yeah, it seemed it would be weird. Sure, you do, yeah.
What is it about Preacher that you love?
I think the characters was the thing that we really...
And it's just like, it's the biggest,
style.
It's the biggest universe, like, that there is.
It kind of reminded me like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
yeah,
which we also both love. It like creates a world where anything is possible and anything can happen, but again, it's all very character driven and character based, and it's very funny, and it's also very like fucked up, and which, you know, especially at the time when we read it, we were obsessed with Pulp Fiction and Quentin Tarantino and the Coen brothers, and they just kind of had, you know, Peter Jackson we loved, like, you know, Dead Alive we would watch, and Sam Raimi's movies, and it just kind of had like all that in like one thing, you know.
What kind of interaction have you guys had with the creators of the comic book?
We just had coffee with Steve Dillon. He gave us a panel from the Preacher cover that he drew, which is one of the coolest things.
We're big nerds, and this is very exciting. Maybe you guys don't give a shit. This is really riveting for us.
But it's you know, we talked to Garth quite a bit. You know, he came to our initial pitches for the show, and
he reads
everything that happens. He watches every cut,
and then he just has like 2 or 3 notes. Very minimal, always right.
Yeah, but he was like a big advocate of, you know, taking kind of, you know, a new path to, you know, just allow a new audience to discover the show, you know, and not strictly adhering to the comics in like...
we were proposing that we do an extremely similar to the comic version, and he told us that was stupid.
Yeah, he was one of the first people to actually say it. Like, I think everyone was afraid to say it, and we were all maybe thinking it, and I think he was the one who's just like, you can't just do this. It wouldn't... He's like, I don't even think it would time out. He's like, I don't think you would just get enough episodes. Like, he's like, you have to change it. It just wouldn't become a TV show.
He just said, as long as you don't change like the core emotion of the characters, and that they're somewhat true to the comic character.
Now, apart from the lack of Jesse's mullet, what are some of those changes that you guys did have to make from the comic?
Well, to look as African American, that's a difference, and a little sassier, I would say.
She's a little more volatile, I think,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways than in the comic. I think we did change. I mean, we changed the Arseface backstory to some degree. We changed his relationship with his father to some degree. I mean, I think the biggest thing we did is, like, you don't see him ever being a preacher in the comics, and we were just like, it's called Preacher. He's dressed as a preacher the whole time. Maybe you should see him being a preacher. And so we thought it would, and when the comic starts, he's kind of done with it, basically. So we thought it would be good to kind of show what that part of his life was like as well, you know.
Yeah, and then there's like minor things, like we changed how Eugene's face looks, and we
Yeah.
don't have sunglasses on Cassidy all the
Yeah,
time.
there's a little
because we want to
aesthetic
see their eyes so they can act like just practical things
Yeah,
like that.
there's a million little things where if you're a big fan of the comic that will be devastating, I think. But I think you'll get over it. Because I think all the big stuff, honestly, I think fans of the comic, as the season progresses, will be more surprised at how much stuff they hope we will be including, as opposed to how little, honestly.
How do you think the internet is going to react?
We're gonna get a
high internet score. I think we'll get a 9 internet meter. 9 on the internet. Yeah.
Seth just said that one of the things about it is that you actually see him preaching in this, but I've been told that you guys don't really consider this to be like a religious show, like the same way that like Lucifer or something like that has religious ties. And what do you think about that?
I've never seen Lucifer, so I can't speak to that specifically. But I think we think, you know, religion is one of the themes of the show, for sure, but I think we don't view it as the first and foremost overriding umbrella under which the whole show exists, you know. I mean, obviously he's a preacher, so there's some, you know, theological elements, but I think it's more to do with the character's morality and who they are as people, rather than whether they believe in God or don't believe in God, or believe in this or believe in that. It more speaks to, you know, the characters than like us trying to like make some statement about religion. We do that in a lot of other stuff.
Can you talk about casting Dominic? I mean, all the years that you've been loving this, did you ever have a face or a name in mind? And at what point did it become him? And the fact that his English didn't throw you at all, huh?
I mean, we met with tons and tons and tons of people for that role, and we eventually realized that, like, to get someone who's really like about to pop, who's at their height, you have to just offer it to someone based on just a sit down, which we're not used to. We're used to auditioning and working and seeing if it works. And we sat down with him and we talked about it for a half hour, and he just like fully got it, thought it was awesome, and we just dove in with him. And him being British is not a problem for us, but man, does he have to practice.
Yeah.
I imagine he's got it down now, but on the pilot, between every take, he was Duarte being like, now what do you mean? Now what do you mean?
Yeah, everybody. But I was a big fan of his. I probably was the one who was like the most, I was on a long flight once, and I watched that entire James Bond BBC series, the Ian Fleming show, and I thought it had a lot of bizarre, like he was kind of cool, but he was funny, and he was kind of a badass at times, but he was like, you know, also a little kind of laid aloof at times in it, which it kind of, you know, it's not that, you know, analogous, but it had, and I'd seen that Devil's Double movie, like, he just seemed like a very versatile, and I remember the first Captain America movie, seeing him and being like, who's that guy? Like, he really stood out to me. He's just one of those guys that I at least thought would be good to work with.
You guys said that you, a lot of it as the season goes on, you will be surprised at how much has remained intact from the comics, but was there ever any point when you were filming something you're just like, there's no way we can make this happen, like there's no way they'll let us do this, because it's such a, like you said, it's such a messed up comic book.
I don't know, I think like...
If anything, I'm surprised with what we've been able to do. Yeah,
I think we're old enough to permanently be shocked by everything they let us do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, tell them, like, you couldn't do that shit when we were kids. It's
Yeah.
Walking Dead is insane.
Yeah, The Walking Dead actually has provided a lot of good precedent for us to do a lot of stuff that you would maybe assume one wouldn't be able to do.
The interesting thing is it's actually like always about story with like standards and practices, and they're much more reasonable. They've actually helped us make things better.
Yeah, it's not like the MPAA where
we're used to being like, fuck the MPAA.
Yeah, we're used to, yeah, don't say that. The NBA are great people. We appreciate all their rulings. Yeah, it's nice to be able to have a conversation. Like, that is the difference with the NBA is we never have the conversation. You submit your stuff, you get notes back if it actually gets a rating that we're not hoping for, and then you just kind of cross your fingers and resubmit it basically. But with this, yeah, they call and you talk and you explain, like, here's why we're trying to do this, here's what we like about it, you know, and pretty much every time we've gotten to do exactly what we wanted.
Speaking of things that you get to do, the fight scenes are like phenomenal. Like, what is the conversation like when you're trying to choreograph something like that, or when you're trying to script it? Like, every single episode seems to have some of the most insane things.
Thank you. I mean, me and Evan, I feel like we directed a lot of action-y stuff in our movies, big visual effects sequences, but I feel like we'd never done a fight scene that we were incredibly proud of, and so we really like this idea, especially in the pilot, of each character kind of getting a fight that defines their character in some capacity. And as fans of action movies, it was always disappointing that when we would watch our fight scenes, we were like not completely thrilled with them. So we just put a huge amount of thought and energy and time into really thinking of how to differentiate them and stage them and choreograph them and shoot them and to really try to get it to a standard that we ourselves were incredibly proud of. Because again, I think, you know, like, I actually think at the interview there's some very good action, but I think like the fight scenes are not fantastic. And this at the end has like some cool visual effects sequences, but there's like a fight scene that's like a little wonky in it, you know. And I this was the first time I really think we were aware of it, and we locked into like, you know, we locked it in place in a way we never had before, I think.
Were they any? I'm sorry. Were any of them like homages to any movies that you like or any scenes that you like?
Yeah, I mean, we would reference. We would for sure reference. I think we referenced like the trailer fight in Kill Bill 2 quite a bit for the Cassidy plane fight. Just because we love that scene. And so that was something we referenced a lot. I think for the Tulip fight, when did we talk about it? That, I mean, I don't remember with that. I mean, it's just a very contained, small space. We wanted it to just feel kind of crazy and intense. Yeah, the Jesse fight was actually the hardest one, because that was the one that had to be like the most revealing of the character in a lot of ways. And
it was funny. There's this one shot where he smiles.
Yeah.
And it was so hard for him to do that because he's actually moving fast.
Yeah.
And your face
just on a physical level to like look like you're punching people and to have like a very aloof kind of happy look on your face was really hard and counterintuitive. And as we were shooting it, Don was like, "This is the stupidest thing. It's gonna look so ridiculous." And we were like, I really think it's gonna work. But so yeah, I mean, it just took like anything good, a lot of thought.
Given that you guys have to go
way in the back.
Yeah, way in the back. Yeah. You have a lot of movie references throughout this. I don't know. I didn't read you comic books, but there's a 2001 reference, I think. I'm not completely wrong.
Yeah, they're for sure.
Just have them running through this all the way. So, and I know Tom Cruise thing.
Yeah.
You gotta. I'm just going to ask about that in general and what kind of response. And the last thing, I'm going to throw all my questions together. You got a talking preacher show afterwards. You guys going to be on it or whatever?
Yeah, we have filmed one episode of the Talking Preacher show. I think it only is happening for the pilot and the finale.
Yeah.
And the Tom Cruise thing is a hilarious joke that we love.
and
we hope Tom Cruise enjoys it.
Yes.
Any response from them?
Not any official one. But I would think it was funny if someone blew me up.
There's no negative connotation to it.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not making a statement.
Whenever and it's funny because like I've, found myself face to face, obviously, with a lot of, our humor often involves a lot of pop cultural references and, references to actual people that I, as a person in Hollywood, am then found myself face to face with quite often. And most people, we only really make fun of people that we are big fans of, because it would actually just feel too mean to make fun of people that we don't like. And I need to be able to go up to them and be like, it's because I like you. And I'm the biggest Kanye West fan on the planet, and I've probably made fun of him almost more than anybody on a very large scale. So I think, and he gets it and thinks it's funny. And so I think that my hope is that people get it, and that when we do something like that, it's truly because we are I'm a huge Tom Cruise fan. I see every Tom Cruise movie that comes out. Edge of Tomorrow, one of the best fucking movies ever.
So while you guys are, doing your thing, adapting this, is the plan to still kind of come in and hit all the major beats of the book? Because there is a definitive end to the story, right?
We shouldn't. We're
all we ever say about this is, if you're a fan of the comic, you're probably not going to be upset at the end of the whole run, and you also won't be able to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's a fine balance that we got to hit, where no matter what, no matter how familiar you are with comics, something's going to happen you're not expecting.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the exact goal, is to satisfy both of those ideas, is make a good show and make everyone happy. You do.
You guys had talked earlier about the violence on the show and stuff you've been able to kind of get away with. Is there anything from the comic that you think you would we just can't possibly go there?
No.
A devout Catholic friend of mine has wanted to introduce me to the comic, but I know the project's been pushed a lot for religious controversy. Is that ever a conversation, or what kind of conversation do you guys?
Honestly, when we made This Is the End, we really thought we were going to come under a lot of fire from religious groups and stuff like that. And what we found was that because the movie, like this show, is not incredibly aggressively against it. Honestly, if it's operating under any idea, it's that it's all true, which is very affirming to a lot of people's beliefs, and and not all the characters believe it, and not everyone in the show likes it, but that's what we actually found with This Is the End. And I think it seems like a similar thing is happening, and it happened with the comics, which was and I think the comics were much more critical of religion just on a narrative level than our show is, but if anything, I think people get it. Just because people are religious, it doesn't mean they're all really looking to get up in arms about something. A lot of religious people are very smart, reasonable people who understand that we're just making, something that uses that as one of its many themes, just because it's so prevalent in our world. It's hard to ignore sometimes, I don't know. Yeah, go. Misfits.
So, on the pilot, with the direction for Jesse, great job. All changes seem to work. My question is, you talked about changing R-Space's backstory. Was that because you can't show? Sorry for spoiling, but a suicide attempt on television, or
no,
just part of the story?
It's just part of it.
It's just like he was obsessed with Nirvana.
Yeah,
I don't know if kids even know Nirvana.
That was one. I think that's probably the first thing that made us think of changing it, and then because we were just well, we'd have to just change it in some way to update it, and then once that was on the table, Sam, I think he just came up with an idea that is kind of blew the other one out of the water a little bit.
Just real quick, will we see Stand Killers in season 1?
I don't want to reveal that. But those of you who've seen the first 4 episodes might know the answer to that question.
What's something from later in the books that you guys are either really excited or really intimidated to sort of work through?
Oh, the most exciting thing is Hairstone.
Yeah, it hasn't happened really yet, but
we don't know when he's coming in, but he's coming in.
It's kind of something that's been alluded to, perhaps, but it's something that he was our favorite character in the comics because he's the funniest character in the whole comic, and it's something that...
And it's a fun choice that they chose, he's a villain, essentially, and they chose to make the villain the funniest character in the whole comic, which is really weird and works really well.
Yeah.
What were the challenges in balancing your feature film work and your acting career with a long-form show, and did did you find there were times where you had to go hands off and let some people move it forward, or how did you balance it all?
We are currently balancing it all as we're going from here to the color timing of the third episode.
We tend to do a couple hours of this a day, I would say.
I think with the writing, I think we actually expected to be much more involved in the writing than we were, and I think they actually had like a much like they really took a command over the story of the season, the shape of the season in a way that was kind of, surprising to even us, and in a good way. And so mostly when we did the pilot in the first episode, it was just like anything else. We like fully, did what we would do. We prepped it and edited it, and we just did the sound mixing for 101 last night. So we're just continuing to finish the episodes, and but yeah, mostly what we spend time on now is the the editing and the color timing and the sound mixing and like the finishing of the episodes, the visual effects and stuff like that. Because yeah, it'd be nice if we could be in Albuquerque just sitting on set all day, but we just can't. But we've hired very good directors, and we have a lot of good producers who are there as well. And it is weird to watch, though, honestly. The first episode that we didn't, because we directed the first two, and so watching the third one, which was the first one we didn't direct, was like a really weird experience.
I've been very impressed with the use of music in the show so far, especially the curated songs. I'm curious, did you guys include those in the script, or is that something that you found in post?
The first song,
Time of the Willie Nelson song's in the comic.
The comic starts with the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Besides that, we
have like very strong,
and
we have very strong musical opinions that we're always looking for opportunities to inject. I think actually, like, if I had one thing to say about they kind of underwrite the musical moments, and we specifically look for places to like have a song come in, and we like using music a lot.
It's a Quentin Tarantino thing.
It is, which is a Scorsese thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we like using songs as score. It always drives our music supervisors crazy because we're just like, and then it just goes away. And they're like, what's it playing on? Like, it's just a fucking song. It doesn't matter. Is it on the radio? Who cares? But, yeah, I think it's just, again, stylistically, the comic and the show has nods to, Tarantino and Scorsese and these types of things, and so we thought giving it a real strong kind of musical presence could be a fun element to the show,
And it was also cool to learn that you get songs for way cheaper in television than in movies.
Yeah.
So you have, we couldn't afford that in a movie, what we got in the pilot.
Yeah. No, it's true, and the second episode has another Johnny Cash song, and
in all our movies we got one Johnny Cash song.
No, it's true. It's we were at the sound mix yesterday, and there was there's Rusty Cage in the second episode, the Johnny Cash cover of it, and Sam literally we mixed the act, and he turned to the music supervisor. He's like, "Did we clear that song?" And we're like, "Yeah." He's like, "I was literally afraid to ask. I didn't want to point out that we have to take out a Johnny Cash song that I like." But the music's been really fun. There's a lot of rebel. We've always been fans of Johnny Cash and George Jones and Willie Nelson, and we had a friend in high school who was fucking obsessed with Johnny Cash, would play him non-stop. He founded the Johnny Cash Club in high school. and
during high school, we wouldn't listen to it or him.
I would listen to it all the time.
Everyone made fun of him.
Oh, I would make fun of him, but it was all one drive to Whistler. He played me the whole Folsom Prison album, and I was like, I'm in. But and ever since then, it was it doesn't apply to a lot of our movies, so it's been fun to have a way to put that into stuff.
I have two quick questions.
Yeah.
One is, given that we have dramedies and rom-coms and stuff like that, how do you categorize a show like this? And two, as Canadians, how do you feel about the way this looks at American culture, at American small towns?
I think, to go to your last question first, I think that is part of the beauty of Preacher with Garth Ennis, is that he is not from America, but he loves America and is obsessed with it and now lives here. And it's a lot of his childhood watching John Wayne and stuff like that, and impacted how he wrote the comic, and then for us, I think it's a similar.
It's a similar thing. It's like when you're Canadian, you kind of know America from movies, you know, and you go to Seattle to buy cheap gas sometimes, but
and shoes,
and
shoes are very expensive.
And Mr. Pibb, they didn't sell Mr. Pibb, and so yeah, so I think I think when you look at the comic, it very much is like a cinematic perspective of America. I think he picked a few American movies he loved and kind of used that as like, this is America, you know? And I think when we were growing up, it was very similar. I think it was things like Clerks and Pulp Fiction and, you know, Wes Anderson movies started coming out when we were in high school, and like we would look at those things and be like, America, you know?
And I think Garth captured it in the comic, and it's something that I think most people would agree, that America is just like the craziest place because there's like extremes of everything, and it's, you know, like Texas and New York are both in America. It's just a crazy country with a lot of story to tell, and I think that's one of the reasons he's gravitated towards.
But at its core, it's really a Western, which is funny because like before we started making the pilot, we didn't really watch a lot of Westerns, honestly. Like, if you asked us, like, are you fans of Westerns? I would not have said yes. But then as you start watching all these old Westerns, you start realizing, oh, well, we are fans of a lot of directors who rip off all these Westerns. And so we very much understood the cinematic language of these Westerns and the look of these old Westerns. As we watch them all, we're just like, oh, Scorsese does that. Oh, Tarantino does that. Oh, it's like, it's very much, oh, the Coen brothers do that. Like, it very much, you know, as you start watching these John Huston movies and these, you know, The Wild Bunch is just like, could not be more, you know, out of some of the handbooks of some of the stuff that's out there today. And so it was funny to look at that and be like, oh, I remember, it's like when we watched The Last Detail. Like, we had already written Superbad, but we're like, oh, we somehow ripped off this movie even though we'd never seen it, just because we must have been ripping off movies from people who had seen it.
So, the comic series leaned on gay panic for punchlines and occasionally menace. And I was kind of wondering how you guys kind of confronted the fact that
we just took it all out. That was pretty much the solution to that one. Yeah, I mean, it was another. I mean, it was probably at the peak of when that kind of stuff was acceptable in mainstream culture and humor in a lot of ways. You know, I think you watch an average like Saturday Night Live episode from 1995, and it probably has a lot of terrible jokes about the same thing. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we didn't even have like a conscious conversation about it. Honestly, now that you pointed out, I realize that it is incredibly true. But we just took it. We just didn't include that stuff.
You guys have been such fans of the comic book genre for so long. What are you really enjoying right now? And do you have any other comic book related properties that you're trying to get to the screen?
We're going to do The Boys next, which is another Garth Ennis comic. And that is exciting.
With Cinemax.
And I'm about to dig into Daredevil.
The show, yeah. I've been watching the second season of Daredevil, which is really good.
I haven't seen it yet. I saw the first 10 minutes. Looks good.
Yeah. And I've been reading Saga.
Saga's the best comic.
Really good. I've been digging into that. What have you been reading?
Jonathan Hickman.
Yeah.
Everything by that guy.
He's great. Mars, Red Mass for Mars.
I stopped reading.
Super fucking weird.
I'm just reading the Dark Towers, and it like replaced the book, not the comic. Now all I can do is read the Dark Towers.
How far along is The Boys at the moment?
Being written.
It's just kind of, we're in a very taking a step back phase. Kind of a similar thing we did with Preacher, where we're like, okay, now that we convinced everyone to adapt this exact thing into a show, what are we actually gonna do? Yeah.
What's the core thing about The Boys that got you excited about trying to translate it?
The idea of doing something in the world of superheroes, like in a more traditional sense, was actually something that was very appealing to us. Like, I think Preacher, you know, is a comic book, but there's something just about the, you know, the visuals of that world and the, you know, the idea of like really trying to like as firmly as possible like implant that type of idea in our world. was just it's something we've talked about doing for years and years and years and years and years, and we've just never really found the right, we kicked around tons of ideas like it, and then that was kind of the thing where like, this is probably like the way to do all those ideas,
Can you guys talk about finding Joe and Ruth for Cassidy and casting those two characters?
Yeah, Sam somehow found Joe, right?
Sam, the first audition Sam saw was Joe, and he kept saying, "You guys got to see this guy. It's a weird tape that he filmed in his mother's basement."
Yeah, he has a vape pen. Always a good scene.
And it was one of those weird things where like we just didn't watch it for weeks.
Yeah, we kept. I
weeks.
assumed it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was just like, "There's no way we're hiring the dude."
And we met with like
who lives in
100
the
other
basement.
people.
Yeah, and then we finally watched the tape. And we're like, "Whoa, this is incredible!" We're like, "He looks like a vampire." And then we Skyped with him. And it was like talking to Cassidy. Like, it was one of those things where you're like, it's the guy.
He's more thoughtful.
He's very nice.
Cassidy.
Yeah, but it is, I remember it was similar to like Michael Cera was Superbad, where it was one of those things where you're like, oh, this is like the exact right guy to do this. Like, there was no one who was really even close as like a second choice for that role at all. Like, if we didn't get him, I don't know what we would have done.
A woman was originally attached to direct like one of the early treatments.
We fired her.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Do you guys have plans for women behind the camera?
There was.
There were 2 directors this season.
I think there was 2 women directors this season. Of the 6 or so 7 directors we had. So
pretty good ratio.
Yeah, that's still not good by many standards, but it's not the worst you'll find on a TV show, I assume.
You spoke with Sam, and he said he wasn't familiar with the comic books. I'm curious, like, how did you guys get involved with him creatively, and what he brings? What does he bring to the table?
We got caught up in the whirlwind that was Breaking Bad. Someone said we share the same agent, and he said you should meet Sam Catlin and work with him. And we were like, he did Breaking Bad, and we just agreed to do it without even having met the guy.
Yeah,
which is insane.
We like the first time we met Sam in real life was like at the pitch, like was like in the lobby of like of a television network, like pitching Preacher. And what's funny is we just pitched the comic. Like, we hadn't even talked about what we were gonna do. We just like, I think we like brought in the comic. I'm like, it starts in a diner. The Santa Killer shoots down a helicopter, and like we just pitched like panel for panel what happens in the first comic, basically. And then after that, Sam was just like, "We're not doing that, right?" We're just like, "Oh, we don't know what we're doing. We're just trying to sell the show, and then we'll figure all that stuff out."
Anything else?
Seth, is there anything you've learned from previous adaptations that you really taken to heart with Preacher?
Would you be talking about Green Hornet, perhaps? I think, honestly, when I look at Green Hornet, for example, I think one thing we did bizarrely, and I think fans of the comic, but would argue that we did not do this, but I think we probably included too many things that were in. We tried to keep it too.
We had to.
Exactly, and I think we may have contractually had to in retrospect, but I think that was our mistake, was to include, like, why do I like having all the characters from the comic, like, it just seemed, like, as I look back at it, it's like, that's never what we would have come up. And we had a script that was actually completely different that we slowly just changed. But it wasn't, but like, the I think the idea that we reimagined it and opened it up and weren't afraid to, really take big swings that were outside the realm of what was in the source material, but still really having faith that as fans of the source material, we would check all those boxes ultimately. I think that was a much better approach than like, how do we update this? How do we modernize this? I think maybe that was something that we did a little, we could have done more.
Just to bring it back to the boys real quick, have you guys spoken with Simon Pegg at all about playing Wee Huey?
We haven't actually, but maybe we should.
You never know.
I assume he's just too successful to be on our television show. I assume he'd want to be on his own television show. That would be cool. That would be amazing.
We have time for 2 more questions.
How do you guys go about breaking down sort of you have this text that sort of has to be told all the way through, and we talked about the ending a little bit earlier, but how do you sort of figure out, when things happen and what season, and you don't know how many seasons the show's going to run, so how do you sort of like figure out how it's all going to play out?
I mean, when we first met with Sam, once we sold the pitch, we kind of just sat in a room and talked for several months straight, and that was really like where the grand plan was formulated, and things will change.
And then once the show got picked up and they hired writers and they sat in a writer's room for months, it pretty much, it changed quite a bit.
Yeah, but like the basic trajectory is entirely different. It starts where it starts still, and
it ends in the
we have a
same
good
place.
sense where it ends.
But like, there was things like Odin Quincannon was not initially a part of the first season, and I think the writers came up with that, like between the pilot and the series shooting, basically, things like that.
Was there a scene or a sequence throughout the whole process that for you guys was like the fuck yeah scene, like where you're like, this is exactly what we were trying to accomplish, and we got there with this moment?
For me, when Tulip's with the two children, that scene is just the music and the lighting and the acting. Big fan of that.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the second episode that I actually really love as well. The chainsaw, there's just a few moments with the chainsaw that remind me of some of my favorite movies from from when I was a kid that were fun to do and fun to watch, and I'm amazed that it remotely worked in any capacity, and we had so little time to shoot it, but that stuff, it's just so crazy. Like, it's one of those things where like I still watch it and I'm just like, wow, this is just bonkers. But I think that's what Preacher should be, and I think that's what's fun about it.